Welcome back to tonight's special Inside the Issues. American civil rights organizations used to care about, well, civil rights. That's not surprising. In fact, it's good. But recently, the NAACP has declared that it regards climate change as a civil rights issue and has said that Martin Luther King's vision for America cannot be achieved without, quote, environmental justice, whatever that is. We spoke to Black Belt Citizens organizer Portia Shepard about this shift. Here it is. Portia Shepard, thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me, Tucker.
So it's a little bit confusing for a couple reasons. The most obvious is I agree with both goals, a clean environment and racial equality, but it's hard to see exactly how they're tied together. How are they?
Well, I personally cannot speak for the NAACP, but what I can speak for is the environmental injustice that we're having here in the Black Belt of Alabama. And part of it is, you know, as it relates to what Dr. King stood for, he stood for justice and stand up for injustices that are happening in all kinds of communities. When you look at here in the great state of Alabama, it's not just in the Black Belt of Alabama. It just so happened that in Lawrence County and in Macon County, they're experiencing this same fight as it relates to environmental injustices. It just so happened that in our community, majority of the individuals who are facing these problems are people of color.
Okay, but I mean, by that standard, couldn't you say Martin Luther King fought for justice, and he did, and it's unjust for the government to take most of what you earn? I think we'd all agree they shouldn't take most of it.
Oh, yeah.
So Martin Luther King would be in favor of lower tax rates. But he didn't talk about lower tax rates, and he didn't talk about global warming, so maybe we shouldn't get him involved in those issues.
But as it relates to justice and fighting injustice, I'm assuming, because I did not make those particular statements, but I'm assuming because through the legacy of what Dr. King stood for, that's the same message that we're using and the same the tools that we're using in this fight for environmental justice. When you have time and time again, when you have communities, especially in the Black Belt of Alabama, that don't have accurate sewage, you have communities that are being poisoned by coal ash. So when you have these things, one would think that it must be a civil rights issue because a lot of the communities that are being affected by this, Tucker, are people of color. So in that aspect of it, I can definitely understand that.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of see what you're saying. I mean, there's no doubt that poorer people live in crummier places. They tend to live in places that are more polluted. There are a bunch of reasons for that, some of them obvious, some of them sinister. I agree. But, I mean, the most polluted places on Earth, I don't know, Ukraine, where the Chernobyl disaster happened, has no people of color, but has a lot of poor people. And so I guess the problem I have with this is if you frame it as a racial issue, then it scares people and makes them think that there's a conspiracy to pollute just because of their skin color. And if we don't have evidence that's true, we probably shouldn't suggest it, right?
I agree to a certain extent, but as far as the class point that you made up, I absolutely agree with that. That's one of the reasons why I brought up Lawrence and Macon County. That's a predominantly white area, but the median income is similar to what's happening down there in Perry County, which is between $10,000 and $17,000 a year. So you have to say that this is definitely a point of class, and it's not so much that we just want to live in a poor area. It's just that me personally, I can just speak for myself. I inherit land in that particular area. I'm not just going to give it up because it's a poor area. And I think it's unfair, especially for that particular community where you have majority of the people who live there that own their land have to give it up because you have politicians and people who are in power who made decisions to dump these particular issues on them. And that's one of the fights that Black Belt Citizens is fighting. It's not so much, you know, of, oh, it's civil rights, oh, it's black power. No, it's not about that. It's about helping people stand up for themselves and get the justice that they deserve. People deserve clean water. My aunt has no business buying 3 to 4 cases of water a week just so she can cook a meal because she's afraid to drink the water that is coming out of her faucet. Those things should not be happening. And it just so happened when you talk about civil rights issue and you see it in Lowndes County, you see it in Gee's Bend, you see it definitely in Uniontown, Alabama, that these issues are definitely taking place. And it just so happened in that area, it is people of color, but it's definitely a class issue.
Well, I got to say, I kind of agree with a lot of what you're saying. And just I can't resist saying I hope you don't sell your land because some of the prettiest places in this country are poor places or rural areas, a lot prettier than downtown Los Angeles or Beverly Hills, I would say. But maybe
a lot safer.
Yeah, a lot safer, nicer people. But maybe part of the problem is that the people in charge ignore and exploit rural America. Do you ever think of that?
Oh, absolutely. You just hit the nail on. I mean, and that goes back to that class statement that you made earlier. It goes right back to that. You know, even though I'm enduring the same stuff you're enduring, but because I got a little bit more than you, then I can keep you. I can feel like I'm above it, and that's the biggest issue of it all. And so that's what Dr. King was about. You know, that poor people campaign that he was getting ready to kick off before his assassination. You know, it was poor people. He didn't say poor blacks. He said poor people, and that's important to understand that when you see it time and time again. Environment adjusted throughout this great nation, it is specifically in poor community, and more than likely, people of color will be affected by that.
Yeah. Well, I kind of agree with what you're saying, and I like rural Alabama because they're nice people.
I can't believe it.
You know, I basically agree. And I appreciate your coming on tonight. Portia, thanks a lot for that.
Thank you so much, Tucker. Thank you so much for having us.
State University, he says that's about the right idea, and he joins us tonight. Professor, thanks for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me, Tucker. I need to make something clear, though, before we start. I'm from Sacramento. I have to give a shout-out to Anthony Sadler, our student here at Sac State, who's playing himself in the new Clint Eastwood movie. He graduated 2017 from the school
I just interviewed him on Friday. What a great guy he is. Well, I'm impressed.
Well, we'll see.
Okay,
that's evidence that we're not indoctrinating the students and telling them to worry about trigger warnings and post-structuralism. And
well, that kid is brave. I will say that.
At Sac State.
Well, you're
Stingers
right. He
up.
is.
Go Hornets.
Amen.
Go Hornets.
All right. See, that wasn't bad. I usually hate that stuff, but that was a good one. Okay, so let me just ask you this.
But the other thing, I know, but the other thing I got to clarify.
No, I can't let you promote anymore. I can't. I'm going to get fired. No, I can't do that.
I'm not a scientist. I'm a historian.
You got to stop, or else I'm going to get
Kennedy.
No, I know, but if you promote any more, both of us are going to hold it. So let me just ask you a question.
This is a much better book than Chris Matthews' book.
Yeah, well, that's not.
Chris Matthews' book can't even come up with this.
Yeah, well, that's not. Okay, that's not high praise. Here's the question. So you think that people should have fewer kids because of global warming, but all the highest birth rates are in Africa. I mean, all of them. Basically, go to the top 15. So it's Malawi, and it's Somalia, and it's Burkina Faso. You're telling African women to have fewer kids? Is that what you're saying? That is what you're saying.
Well, this is going to put a furrow in your brow, Tucker, I'm telling you right now, because although I think that article is legitimate in that it raises some legitimate concerns, it's really a dumb article that we're talking about. Because what are we going to do, stop reproducing the species? It's not going to happen. We're going to have children. I don't believe that we should stop having children. I believe we should look to the future and look at what the markets are telling us right now, which is that renewable solar, wind, all of those, the capacity is increasing. They're saying global capacity for renewables and electricity globally by 2020, 2025 is going to be increased by 40%. There's going to be
yeah, I mean, that's partly true. That's partly true. I mean, wind is a joke, but solar is real. But hold on. There are a lot of people out there. Hold on. There are a lot of people out there who are arguing that you shouldn't have children, or you want to limit the number of children you do have because of the earth and the pressure that they put on the earth. And I guess my question is, are you going to take this message to the countries that are having the most children, all of them in sub-Saharan Africa? And two, it's a little anti-human, isn't it, that message?
Look, I'm a historian. Let's go back. I mean, I'm telling you, this country's already been through that whole thing. It's called eugenics in the early 20th century.
Right, I know.
And we don't want to go there. What we want to do is we want to work all together, people in all the world, to face a global problem. I mean, Fox Business News just on December 20th was urging its readers to think about investing in alternative fuel stocks. I mean, Elon Musk is going to have 100,000 electric semi-trucks in the next 4 years. He wants to produce 100,000 a year. He just shot a Tesla into outer space. That's the future. And the stocks are showing that. The markets are showing that all of them.
So what you're saying, can I say some
money is going to them.
So the stock market is always, this is why I love liberals now, because like the stock market's always right now. It's the stock market. So you take a lot of your cues from the stock market. So if like tobacco stocks go up, is smoking okay?
No, I'm just saying that back in the day, when Henry Ford was moving the country to automobiles, there weren't people saying, "Oh, we've got to hang on to the whip and buggy industry and let's not move there." We moved into
auto. A lot of people saying
that. Now we're moving into electric fuels, electric vehicles. I mean, he just shot a car into space, man.
Well, I know. It was so impressive. I mean, I'm not sure what that means. I'm not.
But you're kind of freaking me out a little,
the 19th
century. We're leaving the 19th century. We're going into the 20th century.
Let me ask you that. Let me just sum this up, since we're almost out of time, and this interview is obviously totally insane. Is there anything about the future and technology
markets have spoken.
Okay, there you go. That's a new liberal position.
Yeah.
Markets have spoken. Is there anything about technology or markets that makes you uncomfortable at all? Or are they always good and right?
There's a woman running for governor in Minnesota right now on economic stimulus to tackle climate change. I mean, we're moving forward. There's a conservative group in Wisconsin called the Wisconsin Conservative Energy Forum.
Nothing
and they're
could
trying
go
to help
wrong.
Conservatives
Technology is
understand about
always
renewables.
good. All right. Good.
They're moving on. It's moving forward.
You know what? I love your childlike faith, Professor, and I'm not going to do anything. You know what? I'm not going to tell you that Santa's not real because I don't want to hurt you.
Hey.
Thanks, Professor.